All right, let's just start because we'll keep this one live after. Like that link will stay. That link will stay
Oh,
alive.
continue.
Yeah, it'll stay up. So yeah, let's just talk about what we're planning to talk about. Looks like we got a couple people in now. So yeah, so we wanted to talk about the difference between meshing and. Give me a second here. There we go.
And roaming, right?
Yeah, difference between meshing and roaming when it comes to Wi-Fi. So we get a lot of calls every day with people saying they want to do Wi-Fi meshing, and what they really mean is, well, first of all, Wi-Fi meshing is when you have a wireless uplink between access points, and that's what your Eros and all this consumer type equipment you can buy at Best Buy might do, and it works some of the time okay, but once people actually want to set up a good Wi-Fi system at home, then we recommend don't do any meshing. Have the Cat 5e or better run, and just set up your access points where you need to have them. You're never going to have any dropouts or any problems if you do it that way, right, Bryan?
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the. It's kind of funny because we get a lot of really technical installers everywhere that are confused by meshing and roaming. Even when I'm doing trainings, that a question comes up of, hey, does your devices roam or do they mesh? And it's no, they're totally two different things, which is, if you've been in the Wi-Fi industry for a while, you would know that. But if you're new to it, and there are a lot of people that are still new to it, ironically or oddly enough, they still are very confused with the two. So we get that question a lot.
Yep, we get the question a lot. So when you can, with, let's say, all the ingenious the cloud products, you can set up wireless meshing, let's say on one access point if there's no possible way to wire it. But if this is something that you're installing for someone else and you're charging them for, I would never do it that way. I'd always run Ethernet, and that way you can leave and know that it's going to still work once you're not there.
Yeah.
So meshing, wireless meshing, it's an option, but we don't recommend it. Maybe for a temporary setup, maybe if you're in a mobile setup, something like that, you do it, like out in a parking lot and you wanted to have multiple access points, you could do something like that. And it tends to work better outdoors than indoors also. If you have line of sight, you may be able to do it outdoors and get away with it and in some situations, but still don't even recommend that really.
Yeah, the one that we get is a historical building or like a museum.
Yeah.
Where you can't touch the walls, you can't crack open the walls or anything like that. That's normally where we would, you could recommend meshing. But yeah, definitely outdoors is the better scenario for meshing because you definitely have clear line of sight. Indoors, yeah, like you're saying, it's a little more difficult. But yeah, meshing is basically one access point wirelessly linking to other access points. It could be two other ones, three other ones. You definitely don't want to go over too many hops.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you recommend? I think we allow up to 8, but we never recommend beyond 3.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to lose performance.
Right. Yeah. So the other thing with wireless meshing is you lose 50% of the throughput after every hop. So really, it's not going to work very well with more than one hop. And even these new systems are smart, whereas they have auto healing mesh where they'll backhaul to multiple access points. Like if you had 2 of them wired and one wireless, the wireless one's going to pick the best way back to the wire somehow. So they have these smart algorithms now too.
And that is the difference between meshing and repeating.
Yeah.
So there's a major difference between meshing and repeating. Meshing is intelligent enough or they have these built-in algorithms, right? Where if they lose a link with one access point and there's another access point that they're linked to, it will still work.
Yep.
And that's where the self-healing comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Repeating is I'm instructing this access point to only talk to another access point via the MAC address, for example.
Yep.
Whereas meshing is saying, okay, I want you to connect with with these other devices. You don't have to set up via Mac or anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're just enabling meshing on all the devices. As long as they're from the same vendor, they'll mesh with one another.
And they'll try to find the shortest
well.
path. They'll use something like an algorithm like OSPF that'll find the best, shortest path back to the wire. So, I mean, and with the Ingenious Cloud, I know there is a mesh view too, right? Now?
Yeah. So with our devices, it's interesting because when you do mesh, you obviously you have to stay with the same vendor. I think that's going to be changing, where Wi-Fi Alliance will have it where you can mesh with other vendors, right? But right now it's per vendor and it's actually per chipset. If you have two different product types or product family types within a manufacturer, they both can mesh. They might not be able to mesh with one another because they have to be on the same chipset. So with ours, with the cloud solution, you can mesh indoor and outdoor access points with one another in the different. We have different form factors, so you can mesh them all together. We use Qualcomm for all of our cloud access points, so you can mesh all those devices together.
Yep. And then you could plug, let's say, a switch into one of the mesh points. Like I have one of the ECW 115s plugged into a switch, and I have that running wirelessly over the mesh just for testing to see how it works. And that and it's pretty stable. It stays up, and so you could plug a switch in with maybe phones or other computers on it or something, and mesh that back into the rest of the network if you needed to. I would say for a temporary situation though.
Yep, I would agree. So what is different with we haven't really talked about what's the difference between meshing and roaming.
Yes. Okay, so now let's talk about roaming. So everyone wants to hear about meshing, but roaming is really what people call and ask if they can do. So wireless roaming is that, let's say you have 3 access points in your building and your users are walking around from one to another. Are they going to have to join the next one? Do they have to do something different? How do you make them roam from one to the other seamlessly? So it really is dependent on the device, like your iPhone or whatever is going to be doing the roaming. Now, the Wi-Fi system can help it along with some mechanisms that we have to push it to the closest access point, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's a couple ways that different vendors do it. You can do it via like a controller, where the controller understands what's happening with all the clients on the particular network, and then they'll force roam these devices or client devices to the different access points. We use a couple protocols to do roaming for Ingenious, like 802.1K, not 1K, sorry, 3K, 3R, I think.
One of the alphabet protocols,
and V. Yeah. That help with the roaming.
So there are ways to help along, yeah.
Yeah, and roaming can happen on, as long as the SSIDs are the same, the security is the same. If you have them on different vendors, access points.
Yep.
If the SSID is the same, if the security is the same, and the client knows that information, it's going to roam from one access point to another access point. Right.
So to set up roaming, I mean, basically you could have, as long as you have the same SSID, encryption algorithms, whether it be WPA2, AES, as long as that's the same on all access points, they can be from other vendors, and your device is going to roam automatically. You don't have to set up different SSIDs for each access point. In most cases, you don't want to do that. You just want to have one, so that all your devices will roam across your network.
Right. So roaming is how the device goes from one access point to another access point to another access point within a network, right?
Yep.
Meshing is more of a topology. And that's how the access points communicate with the other access points.
Right.
And they maintain connectivity to provide Wi-Fi in a particular area. So there are the major differences, unless you would say it differently. I don't know.
Yeah, no, those are the major. It's actually so the meshing is like the backhaul technology. The roaming is the client devices moving from one access point to another in a given network. Now you could use them both in the same network. You could have a wireless mesh point that you're going to roam to if you're closer to it, right?
Right.
Now, as far as wireless roaming goes, another way you can use the controller is the power output of the access points, right? To help control roaming.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So you want to have about 15% to 20% overlap from one access point to another access point.
Yep.
To have good roaming.
Yep.
Also, your output power plays a big part of that. If you crank up the output power on a particular access point or all your access points, you're going to run into a thing called sticky client. That issue pops up all the time. It still continuously pops up, and that's the reason for that are any issues that you would see with roaming. Typically, it relies on two major things: the client device in itself, and how the access points are configured in regards to the output power, the AP placement, just to name a couple.
Yeah, so I mean, if you have multiple access points, you don't want to just crank that power up to max on all of them, thinking you're going to get better range, because then you're going to see that you could be standing next to one access point, but you're connected to one that's further away. That's not optimal. That's not going to be optimal for anybody. So you want to, maybe if you see that happening, that sticky client situation, may want to turn the power down on all your access points to the point where they roam. You notice they're roaming quicker to the one that they're closest to.
Yeah, so there's multiple things that you can do, like output power, or you could do rate limiting as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can force your clients to link at a particular speed or negotiate at a particular speed. And the reason you do that is, you want that client as close to that access point as possible for the best experience and the Wi-Fi signal. So if you put a negotiation rate of a higher number, it will have to link at that speed to connect to that access point. So that's another way to kind of handle roaming. So there's multiple things that you can kind of look at when you do that.
Right. So there's ways to do it. In reality, it should be simple. Just like we said, just the same SSID, same encryption algorithm and passphrase, and your clients are gonna roam. And then you can fine tune it from there. And depending on what Wi-Fi system you're using, controllers and such, they have other mechanisms too. But it's not a difficult thing. It's the way you want to do it. And and again, wireless meshing is the backhaul of the signal over Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet. Now, all right. So we covered that a little bit. Let's talk about Wi-Fi 6E. I know there's a lot of buzz about Wi-Fi 6E right now. So what are you hearing about it, Bryan?
Yeah, so I think that is, we just launched Wi-Fi 6, right? So Wi-Fi 6 is 11AX, right? And so now we have Wi-Fi 6E, which is an extension of their frequency band, right? So we're going into 6 gigahertz now. So we're hearing a lot of great things. In fact, we'll be launching Wi-Fi 6E in the next few quarters. But yeah, it gives us a lot of ability to add in more devices, to operate on cleaner channels. It gives us a lot more channels now. So it gives us a lot of room for advancements in a lot of different technologies. And I think I've already read that Samsung's already has a cell phone that will support 6E.
Yeah. So we're hoping that that Apple will also be releasing the next iPhone will support 6E, and that will push out the standard to all your access point vendors, and they'll start selling them too. The chipsets are there; they just have to be adopted so that people are gonna spend the money on the infrastructure, right? But this new 6 gigahertz channel range gives us a lot more channels. I mean, 1,200 megahertz of spectrum, 99 channels available at 20 megahertz. So that's going to free up a lot of spectrum that's clogged right now in the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, right? So it should give us a lot more, lot better experience for Wi-Fi going forward.
Yep. A lot more speeds as well. Yeah, higher speeds.
Higher speeds,
more room.
Less interference.
Way less interference. But the thing that a lot of people will probably start to think about are, okay, what clients can be supported? What clients will support 6E, right? So that's why I brought up the Samsung. So when Wi-Fi 6 came out, the question was, yeah, you have a Wi-Fi 6 access point, but I don't have any clients that support that. And the ramp up for Wi-Fi 6 actually happened pretty quick. Remember?
Yeah, it was huge. It was so fast, like compared to 11AC and other standards. Because I think the iPhone, Apple released an iPhone. Was it the 11 that supported first one that supported the
11? Yeah,
first one that supported Wi-Fi 6. So once that thing was out there, then there was millions of clients out there that could work on this Wi-Fi 6. So and we saw that there was improved range and speed with Wi-Fi 6. So that's really pushed the Wi-Fi 6 forward. And so as long as both major handset or operating system vendors release a Wi-Fi 6E handset in the next quarter, we're going to see Wi-Fi 6E really take off.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Now,
so I think the ramp-up time frame will be pretty quick on that too. You already see consumer routers starting to support that. The great thing about this is the access points that will be manufactured will be quote-unquote tri-band, right? So they'll operate on 2.4 gigahertz, they'll operate on 5 gigahertz, and also operate on 6 gigahertz. So you'll be able to support your older clients. 11AX is not old, but you'll be able to support those clients that can communicate on 2.4 and 5, and also on 6 gigahertz. So you'll start to see more and more tri-band access points and routers come out to support 6 gigahertz.
Now we'll see. So with the Wi-Fi 6E, I think we'll have less range. So this is going to be like in-room type technology instead of like in-build, multiple rooms, right?
Yeah. Or like a small, maybe a trade show floor, for example.
Yes, high density. Yeah.
Yeah, super high density. Those types of situations, like a church, for example, we run into a lot of churches.
Yep.
Universities in classrooms where they have a lot of students. Anything, it's similar. It's a similar story to Wi-Fi 6.
Mm-hmm.
To handle more, Wi-Fi 6 is a high efficiency platform, right? Or technology. So Wi-Fi 6E will be even more. Will be superior to that, right? It'll add even more. And the really nice thing about this is that Wi-Fi 6 will run on 6 gigahertz. The technology.
Right. Same protocols running over 6 gigahertz. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so you have that much more room with Wi-Fi 6E or 6 gigahertz. You have all the spectrum now, and you're using the more efficiency, high efficiency technology.
That was already the latest protocol that's working really well, but now you have basically extra lanes for it to run in that are going to give us even more speed and less interference. Now, when these Wi-Fi 6E access points first come out, you don't need to put them everywhere. If you let's say somebody just went out and upgraded to Wi-Fi 6 already, right? You can sprinkle in a few of these tri-band Wi-Fi 6 access points, like in high density areas and office spaces where you're going to have a lot of users, right? So the two are they're you can run them concurrently. They're on different bands, so one's not going to affect the other. You can in effect you can upgrade your current Wi-Fi network with Wi-Fi 6E access points, and just make it better without any interfering.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so that's another.
Yeah, so you can definitely do a mix in your deployments. And that's what we found with Wi-Fi 6 when it first came out. You can set up, where you have the high density, have those Wi-Fi 6 access points there, and use your more traditional at the time 11AC access points or Wi-Fi 5 access points in other areas where it's not as dense. Wi-Fi 6E will be basically the same until you see more and more devices supporting 6E come on board, and then you'll start to say, okay, I want to use Wi-Fi 6E in my whole deployment.
Right. Yep. Okay. Well, it sounds great. I can't wait to start testing this stuff. I think this is going to be a great step forward for Wi-Fi. So let's see. Anything else you want to say about that, Bryan?
Yeah. So it was interesting. I was on a call last night, and the discussion was around Wi-Fi 6E, but there's part of the discussion was about Wi-Fi 7.
Really? Already?
Which is another 2 years from now, Wi-Fi 7 they're talking about. So it's another 320 megahertz.
Wow.
Worth of channel. So it'll be added on top of that. So we as a manufacturer, we've seen huge demand in regards to Wi-Fi 6. I think the demand will stay around for Wi-Fi 6E and continue. I mean, I think every deployment we do is Wi-Fi 6 right now.
Yeah.
So that will carry over until Wi-Fi 6E. Yep. And you'll have early adopters, and then you'll watch. It'll just ramp up. I think very, very quickly once those clients come out.
Yeah. Once those clients are out, people want to be able to use them. Once they got it, they're itching to try it out, and they need these new access points to do it. Now, what about power requirements for the Wi-Fi 6E access points? Are these things going to need more than full power PoE or?
Yeah, so it really depends on what the capabilities of the access point have, right? So, we have six major Wi-Fi 6E versions, and it depends on the AP. So we have a version that only needs 802.3 AF, which is PoE.
Yep.
It only needs 15.4 watts to power that device up. And then we have one that's 802.3 AT, or PoE plus, which is about 30 watts. Well, not about, it's 30 watts of power. Watts, yeah. So it depends on the hardware. So the differences between those two devices is the one that only needs 15 watts is basically it has 4 antennas, whereas it's a 2x2 design. Yep. So the one that's AT has 8 antennas, or it's a 4x4. Has a lot more CPU power, more memory. So with that, you can handle a lot more devices. You can handle a lot more, really a lot more devices. And so it needs more power to power up or to run. So.
And even on that stream, it's only AT PoE. It's not even PoH yet or anything like that.
No, BT. It's not even BT.
Okay.
But there are some devices that the tri-band devices will need 30 watts, at least 30 watts.
Okay.
And in some cases more. So you'll move into like BT 802.3 BT or PoE++, which can be up to 100 watts, not 100 milliwatts, but 100 watts. We support up to 60 watts, but we do not have any access points that would take that much power. But the tri-band stuff that will come out with Wi-Fi 6E may need more power, may need more than 30 watts at peak.
Yeah.
Not all the time, at peak times.
When it's booting up, or a lot of clients associated, yeah.
Yeah, mainly when a lot of clients are on the network.
Right.
Is when you'll need that more power consumption.
What about the multi-gig? I know our current 4x4 Wi-Fi 6 access points have 2.5 gigabit interfaces, and with Wi-Fi 6 it's hard, single client, it's hard to saturate that. I've seen in my testing, I've been able to go over a gigabit with single client, but how are these new Wi-Fi 6E access points, how are they set up for interfaces?
Yeah, so the one that we're I want to say it's a 5 gigahertz Ethernet.
Okay, 5 gigabit Ethernet.
5 gig,
yeah.
sorry,
5 gig multi gig Ethernet at 2.5 and 5.
2.5 and 5, yeah.
Yeah, 2.5 and 5. So depending on how far your runs are, you should easily be able to get that 5 gig. I'm actually running 10 gig over my Cat 5e with no problems here. So at shorter distances. So yeah, you can run that, and there's no need for the multi-gig. You can still run on single gigabit Ethernet, especially if the power requirement's not that high.
Yeah, I mean, we have multi-gig and 10 gig, or 2.5 gig and 10 gig switches, and we are seeing that a lot of customers are starting to use 2.5 gig, 10 gig, which surprised me because I didn't think it would ramp up as quickly as it has. So there's definitely a need there for that. But yeah, if as we move forward, internet service providers are starting to provide more than a gigabit. The internet connection is getting greater and greater, or faster and faster.
I see Comcast just came out with a 2.5 gigabit, router modem combo. So that right there is gonna, I think, build up 2.5 gig multi-gig Ethernet really fast.
Yeah, and I know that some of the customers that you worked with, you've already sold 10 gig, 2.5 gig.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's for internal network use. And so we know everybody's working from home right now. And so you're trying to get as much out of your network as much as possible. So they're moving into 2.5 gig, 10 gig ports. I mean, you have all multi-gig.
I have all multi-gig. Yeah, I'm loving it. So if you have any network attached storage, which I have a couple of those on my network, you can put them somewhere where they're not going to make any. You don't hear the noise. You don't want the heat and noise of those things. You can put them in a closet somewhere, and then run 2.5 gig to these things. Or in my case, I might even run 10 gig using the little copper SPF Plus modules. So you get like a super fast connection to the NAS server for backing up your files and all that.
Yeah, so the other thing to talk about in regards to, we didn't plan on talking about this, but like with multi-gig and 10 gig, you can actually use the existing cable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised.
You can't use Cat 5 though.
No, Cat 5 is a little too old, I guess, to do that on. But I have some Cat 5e runs in my house, and I was running 2.5 gig on them for a while when I first installed the multi-gig switches. I have 3 of them on my network. Running 2.5 gig, no problem. So then I put some 10 gig copper modules into the switches, and Jessica, and I was able to get 10 gig link and without any problem. So maybe over 50-foot distances, I'm getting 10 gig, and my desktop has an SFP Plus port, which I plug into the switch with like a Twin-X cable, and my NAS has the same interface, so I plug that into one of the SFP Plus ports. So that SFP Plus rack in the switch is actually useful for a lot more than just fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah, their interfaces, these Twin-X cables are like $10, so you can hook up a desktop or a NAS for like nothing, where a 10 gig Ethernet port for a PC is like hundreds of dollars right now, right? But you can get an SFP Plus card for a PC, maybe out of an old server for like $10, $15, and you're running at 10 gig.
Yep.
Yep. All right, let's see if anyone has any questions. We have a few people watching now. We're going to try to run this every week. We'll see.
Every Friday, right?
Yeah, every Friday. We're going to try to run this every Friday. And if anyone has any questions, please ask them in the video. I'm going to post this up later. And, tell us what kind of topics you'd like us to talk about. And remember to like and subscribe for more help with Wi-Fi. You say anything, Bryan?
No, I think you said it.
You said it all.
You said it all. I mean, the only thing I would bring up is you should probably bring up how long you've been doing Wi-Fi now.
Yeah, I mean, me and Bryan have been doing Wi-Fi forever. I mean, almost like 20 years now, right? So we get asked all the questions, and we have some of the answers.
Yeah, some of the answers. So yeah, it started back in 11B.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We started with 11B. Just a couple.
Yeah.
Ingenious had these great bridges. What was it called? This 2611
The
CB3.
2611 CB3
Yeah.
plus
Yeah.
lots. What
Yeah.
a crazy game, but that really launched. That really launched Ingenious, I think, because it was a high-powered device, and that's kind of how we started working with each other.
Yeah.
We started doing marina Wi-Fi, RV Wi-Fi before this was even popular, or people started to think about this. Marina Wi-Fi and RV Wi-Fi. That was kind of a big thing. Still is actually.
Yeah. It still is, but there's just so much more now that's kind of shrunken away. Because every business is using Wi-Fi now. Back then, it was maybe specially businesses like campgrounds and RVs and marinas and things like that. Now every single business is using Wi-Fi. So it started with that really flexible 2611 CB3 device that you could really use for a lot of applications. People put them inside the antennas. They put them outdoors. It was designed for indoors. They put them outdoors. They ran antenna cables outdoors from indoors. Now you don't have to do that anymore. There's a specifically built piece of equipment to do all that that's way cheaper than you could build it for.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. So I'm going to end this broadcast now, and we'll do this again next Friday.